So when I look at all the free agents out there, there is one guy I haven't talked a lot about that really has my eye. One guy I really want the Eagles to sign. Now, he ain't Le'Veon Bell, even though Le'Veon Bell's on Twitter. He's putting out stuff that he may like to play for the Eagles. It ain't him. And it ain't DeMarcus Lawrence of the Dallas Cowboys. Even though I gotta say, Dallas, if he becomes available, I believe the Eagles will go hardcore to get him. I believe he would be their number one priority, and they would find a way to get him signed because I think they would like to have him. They'd like to fly him in, wash off that stench, that stank of satanic cowboy smell, and then give him the wings of righteousness. 18th pick in the NFL draft.
Hey, make us lunch. We're hungry.
Dallas still stinks. Everybody go. King Ding back here. So I hope everybody's having a wonderful weekend, a great Sunday. For me, it's been a little bit of a hectic 24 hours. I've been following this Bryce Harper thing, and I can't do any more videos on Bryce Harper till he signs. I'm afraid whatever I do, I'll jinx it, but I'm hoping that he will sign. So because I can't do anything with Harper, I just can't talk about. I want to talk some Eagles. And I want to specifically talk about free agency and the guy that I really want the Eagles to go out and get. Now, this is just the guy that I want the Eagles to get, not so much that they will. We have the Combine starting tomorrow, so next week we're going to cover a lot of Combine, some Sixers stuff and like that. But free agency looms. It looms March 13th. And what are the Eagles going to do? Now, you've probably seen the tweets with Le'Veon Bell acting like he may be interested in coming to Philly. That's all great, whatever. That doesn't mean anything to me right now. When the Eagles are negotiating and are interested in him, then we'll see. Another guy I talked about in the intro was DeMarcus Lawrence. Now, I think the Eagles, this free agency, this offseason, they have to make sure their defensive line gets better. Has to get better. And I think if a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence became a free agent, I believe the Eagles would do what they have to do to sign him. I think they would look to go out and spend big money on a defensive end. And I think they'll be able, when free agency starts, I think they'll be able to have one big signing or maybe two medium signings, somewhere around there. And I think if DeMarcus Lawrence became available and is healthy and clears everything, they would go after him. I think he would be their number one target. I don't think it would be Le'Veon Bell. Will Dallas let him go? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Dallas will not let him walk, especially if they're afraid he ends up in the NFC East. But I do think that the Eagles have to address the defensive end position. They have to make sure that they get better at the defensive end spot. Now, I think one way, or what I probably would do most likely at the defensive end position, is I would go ahead, try to bring back Brandon Graham. I think he had an off season last year. He's 30 years old. He may not get as much money on the open market than he thought. They may be able to bring him back for maybe a couple years. Now, if you can do that, then you go out in the draft where you have tons of defensive ends and you draft one early. And that's what I would do. You would have two young guys, whoever you draft in this draft, okay? And then the guys that you already have on your team like Derek Barnett. So that's probably how I would do this defensive end position, because I think the key to the Eagles' defense is defensive line. You have to have good defensive line in football today. To me, with the changes and rules and, you can't hit a quarterback, you can't tackle, you can't do this, you can't do that, it really is hard to have a really dominating defense. The one way that you really can negate a lot of what an offense does is with a good pass rush. Now, you know what we got interior-wise. Jernigan, Cox, you have guys on the outside like Michael Bennett. If you bring Brandon Graham back, Derek Barnett's healthy. You have to keep that line. You have to keep that line top-notch. So I think this is where the Eagles would go for a huge free agent signing, if any, okay? And I think that most likely I would probably bring back Brandon Graham for a couple more years and then draft maybe in the first round, second round, a defensive end. I think that's how they should go about doing it. But, when we talk about free agency and we talk about what we want, there is one guy that I really want the Eagles to get. He may be my top guy I want the Eagles to get. And that's Tyrell Williams, the wide receiver from the Chargers. He's 6'4", 210 pounds, something like that. He just turned 27 just this month, okay? And he's a speed threat on the outside. And I think that the Eagles could afford to go out and sign him, and he would be a huge addition. Now, they're saying he's going to get between $11 and $14 million, probably, to sign. I would pay him. You have Aguilar. Aguilar's like $9 million right now. I would either restructure his contract, let him take a pay cut, and if he doesn't, I would let him go, and I would use most of that money to get Tyrell Williams. I really would. I like this kid that much. I look at Tyrell Williams as an ascending player. Now, I'm going to put some of his highlights in this description. What I would like you to do is go ahead and look at it, and look how many times where Phillip Rivers throws it up to him, and he kind of has to slow down. Very rarely does this guy get to go full throttle, man. He is fast. He's not Deshaun Jackson speed, but he's big. He's fast enough. He's a threat. A deep threat on the outside, opposite of Alshon. I think he would be perfect. Now, if I could restructure Nelson Aguilar, keep him in the slot for the year, that would be fine. But if I can't, if he refuses, I'd let him go. He's a zero money, dead hit, $9 million cap saving. And I would go after Tyrell Williams. Maybe you get Mac Hollins, you put him in the slot or something like that, or you find another slot receiver. But Tyrell Williams is the apple of my eye. He is the guy that I want the Eagles to get more than anybody. Because, I think that deep threat is so important for the Eagles. Now, as far as running back goes, I think you use one of your top 2 picks and you draft a Josh Jacobs, a Benny Snell, and we're going to see a lot more running backs come into focus this week with the Combine. I'm very excited about it. I've talked about Hollywood Brown, the wide receiver, being a guy. Well, I don't know what's going to happen to him. He had a foot injury, I guess, foot surgery, and he's not running in the Combine. So we're going to have to wait and see if he runs at his pro days or what. But he may be a guy that falls into the second. Who knows? Who knows how things are going to shake up? Because at the Combine, things kind of come into focus. But Tyrell Williams, I can't tell you how much I like this guy. He is an ascending player. His best years are in front of him, and that's important. A lot of times when you do free agency and you have free agents and you bring them in, they're on the opposite. They're on the other side of their career. They're not ascending players. I want guys that have their best years in front of them. Tyrell Williams is one of those guys. He was an undrafted free agent. Kid's got heart. I love him. I think the Eagles should go after him. It would solve that outside wide receiver problem. Like I said, draft a running back and then focus on that defensive end spot. Get better there. Bring back Brandon Graham if you have to. Draft a guy high and fill that. That defensive end spot will make the rest of the defense better. I think that's what the Eagles have to do. I've said it before. My key to this whole offseason is to build in front and around Carson Wentz and get that defensive line to be even better, even more dominant than it was last year, because we had a lot of injuries. Michael Bennett was fantastic, but if you look at Brandon Graham, had an off year. Derek Barnett was hurt, so we need to get that line to be one of the best in the league again. That's the key to the Eagles on defense. I think the key to the Eagles on offense: protect and build. Get Carson more skilled players. Get a deep threat. Get somebody that can stretch the field. Tyrell Williams, check him out. I think he is the guy that I really, really want the Eagles to get. Now, I don't know if they're interested. This is just my own personal opinion. But I think this guy is an ascending player. I don't think he's too much money. And I think the Eagles, I think they would be very, very smart to bring him in. Just turned 27 years old, and he would play with Carson for many, many years to come. Who's your guy? What do you think? Let me know. And hey, I will definitely talk to you guys later. Streaming Sixers this week. With that said, take care. Talk to you later. And don't be a dingbat.